Greetings. Okay, let me get this. Unpause. That's a brilliant thing. Okay, hold on. Let me exit out of this. Man. Phew. Phew. Greetings. I'm supposed to start this video a while back. Not a while back, but anywho. I know a lot of us feel like that. To whom is given, much is required. Man. Bro, hold tight to the vision. Hold tight to the vision. Hold tight to the vision. Oh. So, I got no time. I'm just, message. You can pause that or not. The reason people find it so hard to be happy is that they always see the past better than it was, the present worse than it is, and the future less resolved than it will be. New moon energy, so much aligning. Let's tell ourselves, I love myself. I love the versions of myself. As you can hear it in my voice, I'm getting some activations in the throat, clearing some things. Anywho, I got my tea here. We good. Man, that is a message in itself I got today. Amongst other things, I'm grateful. Let's give an honor to Source, to the Creator, for making all this possible. Yes, this is your intergalactic, international spokesman, speaker, international speaker of the world. Myself. I'm just setting intentions, but that was funny, intergalactic. But let's give honor to the ancestors known and unknown. Just so much gratitude for those who have walked before us in this physical, and we are continuance of that. Remember that. Let's give gratitude. I pull out so many notes, like I'm telling you, like I pull out so much stuff. You know, I had the laptop in front of me and everything, and it's like I get messages every time I look at stuff. But I'm gonna jump right into this because, again, the reason people find it so hard to be happy is that they always see the past better than it was. The present worse than it is, and then the future less resolved than it will be. When one door of happiness closes, another one opens. I got this today from a very, very wise and very amazing individual, elder. That, man, I had to see that. So it's so interesting looking at that because me during the Scorpio season, after I celebrated my solar return or birthday, whatever you want to subscribe to, I immediately was dealt with a lot of clarity, clear and precise, like clarity of like realizing how important it is brick by brick, day by day to build whatever it is you're called to do. That being said, that message, by reading that, is I realized that a lot of people that I grew up with, or a lot of people or versions of myself that I realized that I was more content or happy with the past being better than it was. And in reality, like I had an aha moment to where I came across a video and it was talking about how you have to be very mindful of siblings or people who will not just enable, but how did that video go? The sister was mentioning how some, like, not just relatives or siblings will basically support the dysfunction, or of the parent, of the dysfunctionality, or of the parent, or the whole system that you're no longer a part of. And if I've not expressed it before, one of the most challenging things as you're trying to build upon a certain empire, or build upon within yourself, or restructure your life within or outwardly, there will be this push-pull between this emotional connection or attachment, whether it's unhealthy or not, of the old version of you, or the version of you that people knew, that eventually sometimes they hold within themselves with resentment of when you're not the same, or you're changing, or you're not wanting to be who we know you to be. And that's one of the most, again, a lot of people are happy with the version that you were to them. And even through their lens, whether they're aware of it or not, it's rooted in dysfunction. It's rooted in unhealthy patterns, behavior patterns, financial, spiritual, mental abuse, and so forth. I had to come out and tell someone specifically, I will no longer be a part of the dysfunction. I had to, because what I realized is, like, I had went no contact with my mother, and then just see, and this is just authentic, because it's to be a guide for people who will go through this transition, will experience this. Is not devaluing people. It's just real and raw to tell you about, to be very aware of when you are building upon within yourself and reconstructing your life and reinventing and being reborn through your experiences. This is what happens. And the beauty of it is that you're becoming something that's not familiar to them, and what is familiar to them becomes very uncomfortable for them. What isn't no longer familiar with them as you're becoming becomes very uncomfortable for people who are used to keeping you in said box, or having this ideology or idea, or just whatever sense of false empowerment they develop around the version that you were. So as you step into your power, then that comes a lot of foundations crumbling, as I was telling the elder. So I start to realize, like, for one, I realize a lot of people hate their life. They hate what they're experiencing, because what I got clear of that is, like, how can someone hate what you're becoming? So that has to reflect something internal. So for me, I had to realize, like, oh, I get it. When we want to hold on to the idea of what we think that we or others, again, from a world or from humanity or foundations that were built upon manipulation, control, whether capitalism and so forth, then there's this sense of panic, or silent panic that I can pick up on, whether it be relatives or people, because I realize as I step more into who I am and being called who I am, and continue to answer the calling and walk in my purpose and stay persistent and consistent. And I realized energetically, I'm no longer feeding that foundation or watering that foundation, that once at a time, people who seemed to be flourishing in the perspective of what I thought that was empowering but was rooted in dysfunction, I was perceived to be a weed in their life. But it's like I was more enamored, or whether that be people of certain status, family, friends, or whatever, community, and certain things, so enamored by, oh, look at them, look at their status and so forth, and more distracted from really me getting to know myself. And as I start to get to know myself more deeper and deeper, I start to realize, like, oh, hold on, I need to be more enamored, or find that balance between loving myself and then really seeing what is that being reciprocated. So I start to really see the deep parts of how and why certain people who had ulterior motives, or what were really their intentions behind, contacting me, wanting to stay attached to me, using their image or using my image or my presence as um, a scapegoat for their ego or for their false empowerment of, confidence, or, and how I was able to recognize that was seeing certain people, whether family and friends or whoever I associated myself with at that time. um, um, I started to recognize we were on different pages in life. As much as they wanted to hold on to who I was and not focus on who I was becoming, reflected a lot of what they saw themselves as. They wasn't focused on who they were becoming. Some people are so attached to what, not so much what, but who they wish they could become, but they're more attached to the idea of watching what you're doing, or which keeps them distracted from who they can become. And so this what keeps them from the present, as it says, being worse than it is, because they're not focused on the present moment, and the future less resolved than it will be. So the funny thing about that is, like, as I face certain things within myself and I start to sit and observe, and I start to really pay attention to, when I reconnected with people, the same conversations or the same topics, do they reflect my same core value? Are they really walking in integrity? And then for me, one of the biggest things I'm returning to is, like, I've had experiences with my mother to where I had to, within myself, realize that there is no timeline on healing or facing certain things, and it's my timing now, or my place, to know how to deal or interact with people, to protect not only my peace. It's a deeper perspective. It's to protect your heart, to protect what no longer will be taken advantage of or abused. And in that, your healing, my healing, is looking at things ancestral, is my children's healing. And I was sitting here like, whoa, it was a full circle moment, because I got a call from my sister, and my mother was there. And I had already went no contact with my mom because of just some things that we had went through. And for me, I was taking, time apart to, again, dive deeper into my own internal wounds, mother wounds. And then facing those mother wounds allowed me to recognize things that, those childhood traumas that I could not change, or as it said, like, trying so hard to be happy and seeing the past better than it was, and in reality, it wasn't better. And that's the thing about the manipulation of me recognizing the clarity I got of how people passively aggressive want to forget about what has happened. But as a generational cycle breaker, I am a whistleblower to that shit. I immediately, I feel like we're immediately programmed to believe that we shouldn't talk about what really happened or what this person did. And that's two sides, but, authenticity cannot be threatened. Something that's facts cannot be uprooted. It's going to blossom. It's going to stay rooted in that which is the truth. And again, this is not about pointing fingers. It's also about the importance of realizing that I am called to build and bring forth something, a new power that that influences others and people to rise above what has happened to them in the past, but not forget, but rise and be reborn through the emotional turmoil, the repressed and suppressed. And when I was contacted around my birthday, I realized, I was like, I start to realize, like, I start to connect to see how a sibling, and it could have been something innocently, but for me, I had a different perspective on it. I really didn't know what to say to my mother. We had this exchange and so forth. And, we're on a three-way call with my eldest sister as well. And, my mom was like, hey, asking my daughter, hey, when I'm going to see y'all. Because, again, people who've been following me, I'm just giving you a storyline of, like, how when you are going through healing, or when you're facing yourself, and when you are creating a family or recreating a structure, it's very challenging if you start to dive deeper in yourself and you're called to be a generational curse breaker, a cycle breaker. There's no running from the patterns. There's no running from you. There's no running from the unconscious behavior patterns that you develop, and then because you're being called to redevelop through the childhood development into your adult developmental stages, to face these very things that has been causing your lineage to not just be caught up in the superficiality of just finances, but emotional turmoil, spiritual turmoil, abuse, mental, physical, and so forth. That shit is deeper, and it's not for the faint of heart. It's not something you can just put on clothes and hide in, or hide behind the money and so forth. The world has changed. Things are shifting. So my storytelling has a lot to do with supporting to share the message to the youth as well as adults who are unaware, but also to prepare the youth who will eventually get to a place where they may step away earlier, or they may, and step more into themselves and become more enlightened, or become more self-aware of what it is they're here to do, and walk into their purpose and stand into their power and take back their power from, let's say, an abusive mother, abusive father, abusive system, and so forth. So the beauty of that, again, I was it almost seemed like I was bombarded, because at the time I'm just sitting there on the phone, and I started to realize, like, even when you're at that moment, I'm thinking like nothing is the matter and everything's okay. It's not, because even through that exchange, I can still feel the silence, the silent panic, or the discomfort, because I just found out news about certain things that I wanted to handle business-wise. And growing up, due to the fact that my mom did something obtaining to my own identity and stuff like that, using my information. And I have to, again, resolve things for future references, or resolve things for leading up to myself being in a better position to make better decisions, and then make better decisions, and then that better decision making, conscious decision making, that involves everyone that is connected to me, myself and my children, my partner, and so forth. That's the beauty of cycle breaking, because I have to recognize and reflect that this was a woman who was inconsiderate of, at the time, whether she intentionally knew it or not, which I cannot let slide. You did things to, not just whether, I don't know if it's, honestly, I feel like it's out of jealousy because of people's own internal wounds, or because of their own internal battle. So they never want to see you happy, because they're not happy, or they haven't resolved whatever it is to have a better future, or they're not present because their nervous system, or their, this dysregulated nervous system, or the fear of not having certain things, or not ever having that guidance from a mother, or so forth. So again, we're left with a load to unpack. So some of those things, when you are unpacking shit, it's important that sometimes we can be right in front of people. And this is the importance of, if you want to call it isolation or seclusion, where the Most High, the universe will respond to you saying that you want to change, you want to shift, you want to do things differently. Okay, then I'm going to put you in this position. I'm going to take you through this moments where you think you got to have all this material things, and in reality, I want you to dive deeper into yourself and introspect. I want you to learn deeper about you, to know more about you. So now that you realize that in loving you, that's how you're going to love other people. And then you have to realize what foundations you come from that did not prioritize this loving themselves, and to build healthy connections with not only themselves, but their children. So I have to see the foundations of the distorted mother, to whether my sister knew it or not, where they just want to cling on or unhealthily attach to the narrative of idea of what family is. And in reality, the deeper perspective of that, it's much more deeper than, hold on one second, let me pause this. Boy, I love that you can pause the video, but anywho, it's much more deeper than just assuming that you can just come back into someone's life. And this is where people at times block people, because sometimes the healing can take years, because if you're asked to do something bigger and greater for yourself and your lineage, that comes with divine protection, that comes with spiritual protection, that comes with things being revealed to where the people that you think rooting for you are not happy at all. That saying goes that people want to see you doing good but never better than them. And that in itself is that spiritual warfare. That in itself is people who are enemy of themselves, so they're enemy to you. Because for some, I recognize that they won't be seen in this light as the breadwinner. Or, I know a lot of you know people like that. Or they won't be seen in the light as the savior complex and so forth. Because I start to recognize that is very prominent in governmental structures on all levels, community, family, where you have someone who's, let's say, who makes money and so forth, and they're always someone can count on and call. But I start to recognize these are people who lack boundaries, who don't see the importance of their spiritual currency, and seeing why like some of their mindsets is so local. I start to recognize this like with a lot of people. This is real and raw. It's like they were so focused on like, as long as people saw them in this God complex or this superiority, or this, again, coming from this, getting this attention from what they don't recognize to be an unhealthy attachment, or in a way of fueling their ego. And what it is like to keep, very few people don't know how to go beyond the local mindset or the city limits. It's so funny that you see signs where it says limits, speed limit, all these things in the city or certain things, because people don't realize. I'm starting to like realize like, wow, you're seeing this. And it's a difference between someone's mindset who is believed to be limitless or unlimited, to where I start to recognize these are people mindset when you look at even a poverty mindset in an environment, or a lower way of thinking, because I start to recognize the patterns of family members and so forth who were just not just self-righteous, but they were fueling this ego within themselves. And this is why when you're dealing with spiritual warfare, or dealing with generational curses, this is why some people won't support. This is why some people will watch. This is why some people who, again, don't want anyone to take the focus off them, so they will do anything to keep to prevent the focus from being on you. And so that's represented in so many different perspectives. Whether that's being like for me, no longer being a part of that narrative where people can scapegoat through me. And that's on many levels, to where like when I start to recognize a father wound that I know a lot of women in my family had, I start to recognize a father wound in religious aspects. Taking everything to God rather than facing their healing, taking everything to religious figures rather than facing things, rather than sitting down with the men in their family, rather than sitting down with their own emotions and so forth. I'm talking about is to where anything to escape. And that's why I started to realize how people locally, anything to escape from them really sitting down with themselves, whether it's through alcoholism, substance abuse, partying, I'm not saying these things to each their own. It's people gonna do what they want. I'm recognizing the energy of the distortion of, growing up in environments and demographics where a lot of that shit was fueled by ego. So then when you are the one to, people say, make it out or to do something completely different, there is this push-pull, because I'm no longer wanting to subscribe to the narrative of being your brother, being that scapegoat of that father wound, being that advocate, being that sense of approval to enable or to fuel your ego, your wounded ego. And see, this is what people don't realize. It's beauty because it literally mirrors people's unhealthy attachment. And if you are very observant and pay attention, you will see why certain people call you. You will see why certain people don't support. Because as your removal, it's almost like how can I describe this? It's like, well, how can I describe this? I'm trying to describe like a game or something where you remove a piece and everything collapses. This is what the grand awakening or coming into enlightenment or coming into whatever it is completely different when you change your perspective. And that's how powerful it is. When you go within, you're literally not only destroying the foundations or the foundations crumbling within you, but they happen outwardly. And people can pick up on it because then you start to, once you figure you out, you'll be able to figure other people out. You'll be like, oh, and it ain't just the people. You realize that there was still a version of you that you were upholding. That was still something that you were also enabling. And that's why I said, wow, I just brought I get clarity on breaking generational curses and cycles because I'm like, And that's why I say it at moments, it's increments. Like you're gonna want to be a part of stuff with people. Yes, it's okay because it's again, you were in dysfunctionality persistent. They kept showing you persistent dysfunctionality. You were doing things consistently, showing up when things got, the drama or certain things start happening, showing up, doing this. Even people who are in position of, let's say you had the money, showing up. Oh, let me pay for this every time this person went and got in jail or did something. Instead of me learning this, once I remove myself, I also remove myself from their fucking karma. I also remove myself from realizing that the foundation I'm going to build brick by brick is calling me to be something that is unfamiliar to the foundation before. So I'm saying like, oh man. And then through the uncomfortability of that, it becomes easier. But I start to realize like people will clap more when you're a part of dysfunctionality because of societal norms and what we were brought into and trauma bonding and shit. They would clap. And there would be people sitting back and be like, oh, yeah. But then those claps become more silent depending on who you are. As they start to really pay attention like, wow, hold on. Okay, he's really doing this. He or she, oh, she's really persistent now. Oh, she's staying consistent. Okay, let me try to call. Let me try to intervene. Let me try to do something to see if I can pull them, knowing that this will piss them off or bother them. Let me try to throw a wrench in there. When you fucking with alchemists, when you fucking with people who know how to transmute it, who alchemize it, and be like, I knew what you were doing there. You become 10 steps ahead. So that's when I start to realize again, as you start to step in something differently, it's not about recognizing your enemies. It's simply about, to me, it's from my perspective, it's so simple to just be authentic. And the right people will align with you, the right environments, the right everything. It will come so smoothly. You won't be in choppy waters anymore. You'll go from, if you know about white water rafting or, and things like that, the choppy waters where it becomes like so bumpy and all like this. And that's how it can seem like when you're growing up. It's always something, but then you start to realize like as you, because I haven't did white water rafting, but I know someone who did, and I was like, yeah, nah, you just want to. I was like, but anywho, but I've done the canoeing and the paddle boat and stuff like that, and the other one you stand on and what's so interesting about like how life is, you're asked to do something that you've never done before, and that's still something where you have to be aware of who it is you are, but step into a version of you that is very unfamiliar. I noticed that as you start like stepping into stuff, I didn't know you did this, and you'll be called weird, anything but a child of the Most High, and some people with certain mindset, man, that's crazy, that's this, you'll be called everything. because they cannot do it. They don't have the courage because they're familiar with having a local mindset. They're familiar with the people, they're comfortable with the people that they know being around them, fueling their ego. They're comfortable with them being in their position. And then the comfortability, as you remove yourself, they don't realize that comfortability they were in, as you remove yourself. Hold on one second. So yeah, that comfortability that they was in, they were normalizing, they'll never tell you that they also will be faced with a different internal dialogue, or they have to learn how to deal with their shit on their own. Be strong. It's like, and then even just strong is just like, everyone here are here to learn lessons. It gives me even more confidence to step into what I'm doing, because at a point in time, the illusions, the confusion and so forth of thinking, oh, I gotta stand this because of family, or I gotta do this because of this, and they're not built and created my own. I'm like, what's more of a priority? Protecting myself and the family that I built, or what am I protecting? Am I protecting the dysfunctionality where eventually will just lead to more self-sabotaging behavior patterns, lead to more disempowerment, conversations about, gossiping about each other, belittling each other? What the fuck am I fueling? What am I enabling? Aha. You have an opportunity now, and that's the beauty of it. What has this given you an opportunity to do? When I saw people who bragged about their money, but never invested in people who could have set things up for that financial abundance for everybody. When I see people brag about what they had, but never truly had peace in their homes. When I saw, observing, you start to be like, whoa, this whole time I thought that this was it. This was the all be all, and it's not. Because then what that is that as you're observing, you begin to realize like, oh, I have an opportunity to do something completely different. So that, why would I even expect the support to come from them? Because their foundations, I know for a fact, is crumbling. And that's simply because of their inner world is not at peace. Their inner world is not at harmony. They don't even prioritize these very things. So why would I sit here in confusion and realize like, whoa, hold on. No, they never had it all together. No one has it all together, because I'm looking at my situations and building it stone by stone, brick by brick. But the only difference is, the only difference is that I'm building mine authentically, where no one can threaten it. And in that, you are a threat to their foundation. You are a threat to what is familiar. And that's not just family, that's friends, that's business, that's partnership. Your energy comes into places, your presence, and it literally, through the uncomfortability of people who have not dealt with their shadows and so forth, they will find, you realize nothing of what they have done or what they're doing has nothing to do with you. And I was like, whoa. Not to mention the parts of you realizing, coming to more deeper clarity, why it is you have to stay away from these people and love them from a distance, because you love yourself more. Because you realize they're a liability to what you're building. Because you also realize that they'll come in, they'll try to monitor, like a monitoring spirit. They'll watch everything you do, probably try to copy or mimic, but they can never duplicate. None of it matters, because you're given the blueprint. That is a responsibility given only to you. And no matter what, weapons may form, they shall not prosper. Things are becoming clear. It will become clearer and clearer. The vision, holding in tight to the vision that people could have decided to be a part of, but they wanted to hold on to their vision. They wanted to hold on to the false perception or the false empowerment structures that I've always said that are crumbling right before us, because You're going to see people think anything's going to go back to normal. No, once you remove yourself and come into clarity, nothing's going to go back to normal. Think about that. That goes for anybody right now. Nothing's going back to normal. Nothing. And it won't ever be. Nothing. More and more stuff going to keep getting exposed. And then it's the beauty of you recognizing the fact of like, are you really surprised? No. This is like a child. I'm looking at people now as like a child figuring out their mother and father were not honest with them their whole life. Like they hid stuff their whole life only for them to figure out like, oh, this is who you are. Government structures, everything. Oh, this is who you are. You're liars here. You're not dishonest. I mean, you're not honest. You're dishonest. Everything you built on was a lie. So that being said, why are we convinced that the family structures that reflect these same systems, why are we surprised? Why? I'm not surprised. Because the only ones who are in fear are the ones who did not build their structures upon love and truth and honesty. And that goes on all levels. So for me, I know what I've created. I know what I'm building and so forth. So I don't have to be worried at all. It's funny because I'm looking at notes weak from the chaff. Identifying and isolating what is valuable or good from what is worthless or bad. Processing of the winnowing, winnowing, separating grain from its husk and other debris, meaning discernment. I keep telling y'all, this is what's happening. Is that, again, after that conversation I tried to have with my mom and them and so forth, I just couldn't lie to myself. I had to literally let my sister know, like, listen, no. I'll talk to y'all when I talk to y'all. You're going to feel what you're going to feel. And then with that, as we speak these things, as you say these things, they're the idea of you, the energetic resonance, the version of you, people like that energy can't hold on. That energy can't suck dry or cling on to or siphon what was. So when I say that, I'm not surprised if this makes sense to a lot of people. What happens when I hear about something in a certain dynamic is because my protection left with it. My energy left with that shit. Not you think just your physical presence goes? No, your energy goes with it. That's in relationships too. Like you have to realize, like, let people go through what they need to go through. That's for the betterment of all. I'm grateful that people departed from me. I'm grateful that I walked away and had the courage from people and places and environments. It was only preparing me for the new, for what was better for not only myself, but those connected to me. A lesson that I had to learn more and more of. To realize, like, I'm going to show you everything about who it is because this energy no longer resonates with you. They're not able to go where you're going. It don't supposed to make sense to them. The vision wasn't given to them. So I'm not surprised in the foundations after I told, expressed to someone like, hey, I don't trust my mother around my kids. And that's simply because I'm looking at the energy. I'm looking at the person who has not did any inner work, who has not healed. Once you reconnect with certain people or certain conversations you have, you realize this person has not, they changed clothes, but they have not did any internal work, meaning shadow work. They haven't faced anything. And their actions are going to show. Because the same behavior patterns, the way they speak and so forth, you can only dress it up but so fucking long. You can only mask yourself for so long. And one thing about authentic, it's not about masking. You don't have to mask. You just be yourself and show up. Be yourself. I'm cooking. But anywho, and again, that weak from the chaff aspect. So yeah. I'm not surprised at all. I had to express I don't trust. And the funny thing is, like, once you start to recognize the dysfunction, you realize who also, even through, like I said, the approach, like, sometimes you have to be discerning to, like, what's your intention? Knowing that I haven't talked to this woman, What are you trying to, trying to create? What are you trying to bring back together because people know that you are gone? People know that your energy is no longer there, your presence. They know. They're betting on to see how long you're gonna be away. They're betting on to see how long you're gonna, it's so many things. And on a spiritual level, it's just that same thing. They want to pull you right back into a place where nothing. It's like a old timeline, lower timeline, or just an old perspective on life. Fuck no, I'm done. Cause I realized like people showed me like all this time. You start to recognize like y'all invest in so many other things, but you don't even invest. Because I realize you don't know how to invest in yourself, but you don't even invest into the ones you care about. So how are we going to build? How are we going to expand on anything? And I get it, you don't have to, but I'm just grateful because I'm realizing like you align with those who will. And when the intention is pure, you start to realize who have ulterior motives, whether that be a friend, family, relative, whatever it is. You start to see it energetically, like, yeah, nah, and you just move around. Step more into your power and love on yourself, because I tell you what, it's a beautiful thing when you know that what you're coming into, and then the responsibility in protecting it. It's not just physical protection, it's spiritual protection. As you dive more deeper, you start to realize like as you're brick by brick building that, you have a responsibility. Even when you're coming into things materialistically, money, finances, do y'all realize like that shit comes with spiritual protection? I told you I had to recognize certain people who was perceived to be, like I said, what do they call themselves, breadwinners? What do they call themselves, certain status they would brag about? Oh yeah, I'm this, I'm that. All those things to where I start to realize they had more confidence in it, the physical aspect, coming from a wounded place or coming from an ego place, rather than seeing the balance between, well, are you protecting this? Do you need to expose this to everyone? Let them come into it when they come into it, pop out when you have to. Because that comes with alignment with spiritual protection as well. What's for you already don't happen in the spirit. It's just going to trickle down to the physical. Now, I'm going to remove the universe, I'm going to remove these people because you thought you was, I had to show you in the visions or dreams or whatever it is, show you that. Now, you thought you was supposed to get this, but you wasn't supposed to receive this with this person. You wasn't supposed to get this around this person. You wasn't supposed to say this and say that, because whatever vices, whatever their experiences, whatever they're battling with internally, does not really side or align with what I want you to do, or really support what you're doing. They're going to be in the way. They're going to be a distraction from the bigger picture because they don't see the bigger picture. They're not present. They still have things to go through. Allow them to go through it. So then when you get to this place, you realize like when they do choose to do the inner work and be better, maybe you could align long down the road. But if not, if they show you too much that they're not willing, evolve, move on. Because again, a lot of things comes with spiritual protection. A lot of you think certain people are supposed to be around. Man, let me tell you something. No, you want that discernment or that redirection was the spiritual protection for your inheritance, spiritual inheritance, and other things that you are going to inherit through you not being around certain people, or you being in spaces where no one can reach you physically, mentally. And so then they would try to come and try to reach you in the spirit aspect. Certain things that, again, that will be illuminated to you. No, man, because people can see your shit. People can see your life. People can see the calling. People can see a lot of things. And the beauty of that is that being aware how protected you have to be. And I'm going to leave with this. It's so important because imagine a lot of us through our child development, we had divine protection. We've always had spiritual protection. We've always had these things, spirit guides, things that protect us beyond the abusive mother or father or the abusive system and so forth and all that. Now, the responsibility in that is like the awareness around you guiding and protecting that, and then having that support system on the other side to make sure of that. And you let people brag about their things and stuff, in every way, but at the same moment, what you have is to reach more people. That's like someone who is of a local and, they may be their mission to do that. But some of you have missions that will reach nations of people, hundreds of millions, billions of people. Then not to mention after you leave, how many people that will trickle to. That's important for a lot of you that are coming into where it seems like you were a follower during your childhood. Now you are coming into leadership. As you a cycle breaker, you are called to be a leader. You are called to lead. You are called to do things completely different. That's leader. You are called to be a guiding light. That's what a leader does. That's what someone who is choosing to be more responsible for their emotional, mental well-being, physical well-being, rather than allowing someone else to dictate that, allowing someone else to decide that for them. And that's where I realized one of the biggest things I had to break was codependency. I had to recognize, like, these people are just codependent on me just as well as the time I was codependent on them for financial support, emotional support, and so forth. And in reality, I had to learn to be that for myself. So with that, I recognized that the foundations with these people no longer could exist because it's just what it was. It's just not something that was built on honesty and truth and so forth. So that's the beautiful thing to like have the awareness of, is to be able to think for yourself, to move when you're supposed to move. Slow motion is better than no motion. Moving and deciding this is what I'm going to do, that free will, that authenticity, the loving on yourself, to stand in that. So y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.